contribute, participant. We don't have formal speakers here. He's our colleague, Dr. Gumbi, and I'm really pleased that you're joining us today. Her interest and field of expertise is within the innovation space, I would say. Within the innovation space, and she can provide us more details regarding where you're focusing it. But we are pleased to have you here today as part of this community of practice, where we are all in search of new understanding. And thank you for making your time to share with us some of your ideas around what you're doing and how you see this impacting also in our broader society.
Sure.
Because I shared with her in our preparation that the notion of social accountability towards society and professional engagement is important for us as an academic institution. So welcome here.
Thank you very much, Benny. When I mention the word technology, how many of you immediately think IT?
I'll admit.
You know, when anyone says they're looking for a chief technology officer, how many of you immediately think IT? And that's the limit of appreciation of technology in your mind. Whereas technology is so much broader than IT. And through the popularity of IT, we've focused our minds on that as technology and not associate every other technology around us as part of the technology innovation space as well. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I did a PhD in pharmacology, and immediately after doing my PhD in pharmacology, I went straight into management of technologies. Now I know something about everything, not everything about something. And so that's to introduce myself. I'm currently group executive for biotechnology sectors at the Technology Innovation Agency, which means I am responsible for the development of technologies in health biotechnology, in animal health and agricultural biotechnologies, as well as in industrial biotechnologies. If someone could tell me what is the link between wine, beer, and cheese?
Wine, beer, cheese, yeast.
That's right.
It's yeast, is it?
And that is the first generation of biotechnology that we know of. It's interesting because wine and beer in particular forced man to start growing things, alcohol. Forced man to start growing barley and to start being farmers rather than hunter-gatherers. And that's how old biotechnology is. Now, in the latest generations of biotechnology, we're looking at manipulation of genetics, manipulation of DNA, and developing new technologies around what we call the omics, which genomics, proteomics, metabolomics, and so on and so forth, to bring about new health innovations, both in human and animal health, and as well as to introduce new industrial processes that are greener, more environmentally friendly. And so that is the field of, in a very broad sense, the field of biotechnology. At the Technology Innovation Agency, we fund technology development, and technology development in a number of areas, in mining technologies, safety, for example, in the mining industry. ICT is one of the areas as well. Energy, new technology in the energy sector. Renewables, for example, which is the big talk now in the energy environment, the energy space. So what are the new emerging technologies that people are developing? One thing about South Africa, it's got an enormous capacity to be innovative. South Africans are extremely innovative. The problem, I think, sometimes that some of that innovation is channeled to doing the wrong things rather than the right things. But we're very creative people, and it's hard to harness that innovation in order to make a contribution or improve, our lives. Linked to this sector is intellectual property, obviously, and the management of intellectual property. And I've got an interesting story to tell in this particular space of intellectual property. I have got family lives in Soweto. They've got a business of a baking business out of a home kitchen. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, they get up and do the cake mix, the scone mix. And at about 8 o'clock, the rest of the workers come, everything's ready, and they put, the stuff into the ovens and do the baking. Have you ever stopped to think why they do it this way? They don't want the workers to know the recipe for their mix. Now, here's people in the township in Soweto starting to, although they may not articulate it and say this is protection of intellectual property, but effectively that is what they are doing. And so technology innovation comes from at every level of society. It's not just high-tech, sophisticated, but can come from any part of society. The challenge is, how do we harness that technology in order to make South Africa competitive by introducing these technologies in the market. Very challenging introducing technologies into the market. A number of, I think one of the biggest challenges is the financing of technology. It's expensive. It requires investment. Many times it doesn't work. We just heard 70% of projects fail in the IT field. What is our appetite as a country? First, to finance technology, and second, to accept failures and allow people who have failed to try again, rather than to penalize them for failures that they've produced. And so there are many challenges in the space for introducing new technologies. But I do think that with the younger generation that's coming up, that is very technology focused in or grounded in their approach to life, there may be more opportunities for growing entrepreneurs to embrace technology and to drive technology as enterprises. And that's some of the work we're doing in training young people on technology development.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So how do you see the meta context, almost the broader South African landscape, being positioned to really allow the implementation of, if I say, real projects or real developments? How ready are we to see the occurrence of real developments at an entrepreneurial level, for example, in the biotech space?
Sure.
Because it always sounds to me it's up there somewhere, and it resides at the universities and the agencies. How really is it to get to the man down on the street?
Well, if you think about beer, it is in the street. But I understand what you mean. When you look at the biotechnology ecosystem, on the one hand, you do need government support because it's a long-term investment. Biotechnology, unlike IT, doesn't evolve in a year or in a couple of months. It evolves in several years, and that's part of why patent system being 20 years, you find that in many biotech environments, they're developing for at least 12 years, and you've only got 8 years to realize your return on investment. And so government participation is quite important. The second element to this is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs that are able to bring these technologies to the market. Right now we're finding scientists turned entrepreneurs, which is not the most successful model unless you're a different type of scientist. Scientists are interesting entrepreneurs, if I may put it that way. The third leg is industry. Industry to absorb those technologies, and preferably big companies who may find a need or use that technology as part of their pipeline. So in essence, they are outsourcing the development of technology to take them in as part of their pipeline to grow their competitiveness. And the fourth factor is funding. We don't have a strong, if any, a venture capital funding environment in South Africa. So much of the development takes place pre-revenue, and you need the money pre-revenue, but most of our funding entities in South Africa will only take after a company is starting to generate revenue. And so there's a funding gap there of how do technologies move from, they've come out of the university environment, they're just doing market testing, for example, but they're not generating new revenues. And so what it is to understand the elements around technology development, what enables technology development, and what support is necessary to ensure that technologies ultimately do reach the user that it's intended for. And in our case in South Africa, we're missing big industry in some of the biotech areas, and we're missing a vibrant venture capital environment.
If I may, sorry, Hogan.
Okay, I was just going to ask, we are innovative, but yet there is no formal sort of training of allowing the innovators to actually register their products with the intellectual property, which is CIPC, or patents for that matter. And then to go to an attorney to do that, there's a chance that you will lose whatever you've invented. To add to that, a lot of the schools have these science experts. What happens is that the teachers or the principals don't actually advise the students, if they've come up with something good, to actually protect it. And they don't do that type of thing, because you have people coming around looking at what's been developed, and they steal the ideas. So they become very despondent to carry on with that type of thing. And I think we need to train people to understand that you just protect whatever you develop, because once it's in the public domain, you can do nothing. It's gone. To add to that, the DTI has got a particular division where you can actually get funding for innovation. It's seed capital, which I think you should be able to tap in. Now, coming from your biotechnology side, you should be able to tap into the DTI. And I'll help you with that. I don't have any problem with that.
No. I mean that the aspect of protection is key, especially in high tech. How do you protect your the intellectual property? And protection of intellectual property, IP is a tool. You can do, once you've protected, you can do whatever you want with that intellectual property. If you want someone to have access to your technology, and you charge them at cost for that, you can do that because you own the patent, as much as you can make money out of it. So really, I see intellectual property as a tool that an individual can use and exploit to what they want. And there's a perception that low technology doesn't have to be patented. But at the same time, what if someone else stronger comes and patents and sells it at a high price when you have a social interest in this product to be available and accessible to societies? Now, because someone else has overtaken you, you can't have that social good aspect about, it's really controlling, having control over your IP to do as you please with it.
I mean, if you look at the medicine, the medical field, I mean, the guys, do research and development, created a pill. That pill's life is only 10 years or 20 years, because thereafter they shut down that whole plant, get rid of all the staff, then you get the generics coming up somewhere else, because it doesn't pay them to carry on with that particular plant. So obviously, there's money in the research and development, especially in the medical field, you know. Than for oncologists. And it's a big mafia business.
In South Africa, we believe that there's a growing interest in the natural plants that are available for medical use. So I assume that's a biotechnology potential. And how do you see that developing? Is that an area that the country is focusing on? Or are we going to allow, for example, German companies to come in and play with us?
South Africa has a very, very rich biodiversity, which is why there's so much interest in natural plant products, the value of natural plant products and the use of natural plant products in South Africa. Linked to that, and it's very difficult to de-link the two, is that much of the knowledge of the use and application of natural plant products in South Africa is known by traditional healers and traditional practitioners. And so what I think we really struggle with, on the one hand, is as a scientific community, is working with traditional healers who operate in a very different way to the scientist. The scientist does an investigation, and does a whole lot of tests and analysis and assessments, which the traditional healers does not understand and feels they're losing control of their knowledge. There are two knowledge systems there, the traditional knowledge system and the scientific knowledge system. And the bridge between these knowledge systems is not functioning very well. And that leads to a lot of distrust of the scientific environment. And a lot more work is required in that area. We certainly are, as a country, building the capacity to investigate the potential and opportunities within the traditional indigenous knowledge, traditional health, natural plant product area. And from a commercial perspective, there's a lot of potential in that, given how generally society is looking and wanting more natural products for dealing with health problems and the like. And I think by not trying to bridge the two knowledge systems, a lot of energy gets dissipated in the relationship, rather than in focusing on how do we build a system that will acknowledge traditional healers and practitioners for the knowledge that they have, yet we recognize and reward appropriately from the economic potential, of this system. We are developing in our knowledge and in our understanding of how to work with these two knowledge systems. It hasn't been easy, and it's been discussions that have been going on for a long time. The Department of Health has been for a while looking at regulations for natural plant products, and it's something that has been going for more than 10 years. And that on itself reflects the complexity of the issues that I have to deal with in regulating this industry. If you were to ask me, do I believe in natural plant products? I would say, given that some of our modern day medication came from plants, foxglove for digitalis and so on. There's truth in the healing ability. I think we've got the opportunity to actually use science to validate those claims on the effectiveness and applications of natural plant products. But certainly, given the diversity of South Africa's fauna, flora, and plant life, there certainly is a lot of opportunity that can be exploited in that area.
Any other questions, Joe?
Well, it's a comment, but I think when they nailed it, hit the nail on the head by saying one you believe, the other prove it. So it's by believing that natural medicine, that ocean will help one particular need that you have. Whereas from a scientific purpose, you would then actually scientifically prove the benefit of that particular medicine. And I think perhaps that's the two worlds that it exists in.
But are there necessarily two worlds?
I think that's when the penny dropped for me. I believe it. I say, yes, you don't need to prove this. You just believe in it.
This is like my mother believes that Beck's paper run. And the ghosts, everything. Any other questions too? Yes, Emeka?
This is a very interesting thing to me, in the sense that somebody with orthodox scientific knowledge of medicine, let me put it that way, is speaking about the traditional. Right? I don't know whether you are the right person to represent them, considering the fact that the orthodox pharmacy medicine, as it is, tries as much as possible to vilify these traditional people with traditional knowledge, probably because of the danger or the challenge posed the orthodox.
There's also a market struggle. There's a struggle.
Yes, the market struggle. Yes, it's a market struggle, competition, and all this stuff. I know, for example, in my village, the village where I come from, there are too many plants. There was one man who is in the village here who never went to school, but he walked into the bush. But I come from a tropical area. There are too many plants that grow there. So he will know this one is going to cure this, this one is going to cure that, this one is going to cause this one is going to cause that. So it's like he is the first place we go to anytime anybody has any ailment, including malaria, fever, running stomach, all this stuff. He has to go to this guy first. And the guy will give you something and it will solve the problem. You just go into the bush, get some leaves, put them together, squeeze them, get a bit of the whatever, and give it to you, drink it, and it will solve the problem. And eventually we have some pharmacists in our villages who went to university, studied pharmacy up to as much as we did. They were always warning us never to go to this village man who never went to school. You get the point. So this is from home. And some of us who have also gotten an opportunity to go to school to get a PhD, we now think of knowledge not from as established in an established institution perspective. We're talking about native knowledge, indigenous knowledge, of doing things, and how we could do certain things, and using the little thing we have or the much we have. Actually, the issue here is not about this knowledge versus this knowledge. It is the financial benefit that has been created, which accrues to orthodox people. This is where the problem lies. The financial benefit. If we can find a way to make this financial benefit a little bit lower to where it can be affordable, maybe these two people can easily unite. Because ultimately, what we call pharmacy, as much as I understand it, because when we were going to school, my cousin, immediate cousin, was studying pharmacy while I was studying construction, in the same university. He would tell me, this man that used to be the native doctor in my village, we call him Fabian. Okay, so, but we don't call him that. But we put some name and respect. We don't call him that. We say Dave Fabian, which is the elder Fabian, See, this thing Dave Fabian is doing in the village is actually what we are doing in this pharmacy, but in a different way. So they are the same thing to an extent, but the only difference is methodology. Okay? Okay, sorry, I'm not qualified to say that. But the point is, how do we, now that you are championing this issue, I believe you're trying to champion it, how do you, divest yourself from this struggle between these two people to actually go to this set of the transition to bring out this knowledge and do what needs to be done, and whether there's a need for patents or whether there's a need to make it available to everybody. I don't know how we're going to do that.
In fact, you've touched on a very fundamental issue, and that is benefit sharing. How do traditional practitioners and holders of indigenous knowledge benefit from the knowledge that they share with the scientific community? And therein lies a lot of the contention. Just to add, is that government now requires every individual who works with natural plant products to register and get a permit from the Department of Environmental Affairs before they can do any work in that area. And one of the requirements of that, to obtain that permit, is to have a benefit sharing agreement. There are more problems in terms of who should benefit. That's another area all in all. I do think that South Africa is moving towards a knowledge economy, but I'm not sure if we've clearly understand what it takes to move to a knowledge economy, and whether we've looked at what is the knowledge that exists in South Africa that we can leverage and get the best opportunity out of that knowledge. We have this knowledge on the use of medicinal plants from the biodiversity and so on. We have knowledge in a number of other strategic areas, but I do wonder whether we are harnessing those strengths and focusing on how do we then turn that knowledge into competitive advantage as a country and economic gain, as a country. Certainly, government has identified biotechnology as one of the areas that it will focus on. Department of Science and Technology has a farmer-to-farmer strategy, so farmer F to farmer PH strategy. So from natural products to a pharmacy and that value chain. And so there is recognition that we need to find a way of these two knowledge systems integrating and coming closer. And that's part of the effort that is taking place through programs of that nature.
It's not either or, but both and.
But both, yeah.
Jane?
I'm also a pharmacist. So, and I'm a natural healer and working on superfoods and superfoods medicinal side. And there's one thing that I've realized is that in the same way as Chinese medicine was eventually decoded and put into a format where we can understand the dry and the wet treatments and so on, what really needs to eventually happen, could happen, is that we need to also demystify, if we can, which does spoil it a bit, but demystify the synergistic way in which traditional African medicine works and the way the plants work together. Also, you'll find that there will be a plant and it will have a whole lot of diverse effects, from hypertension to maybe an antibacterial effect as well, maybe a diuretic effect as well. So it's quite difficult to demystify it. But the time will come, and there's a lot of ethnobotanists, I don't know if you've come across them, who are busy doing all of this, growing the plants, looking at them and seeing how they and to me it's probably one of the world secrets, because there's so much actually coming out of dark Africa, because it's now the time when we need these important medicines directly from the plant, as opposed to isolating the active ingredient. The minute you isolate an active ingredient, like take the valerian plant, that's where valium comes from, and they extract it out of the root, and then you get all the side effects. If you just treat the person with the plant properly, the root, they get better synergistically. So, yeah, we don't want to get actually too scientific about it, because it's going to lose the most effectiveness aspect of the plant. So, yeah, in time, the whole thing will be unraveled and things defined. I really look forward to that time.
It's evolving. It's very much evolving.
Beautiful. Welcome.
I've got a concern in that we've got all this knowledge, this indigenous professional knowledge. Are we not in a situation at the moment in the land we're going to lose it? Because who are the older generation actually transferring the skill to? Because a lot of them have gone to varsity, a lot of them are leaving the villages. So who's taking that lull to ensure that it continues? Because we're going to lose a lot of knowledge there.
I agree. Absolutely. And as mentioned, the work of some of the codifying that knowledge, it has started. And it's a very important aspect of preserving some of that knowledge.
I want to share just a practical experience on this. On the way home to my office, there are 3 yellow thorn trees at some area on the way to the office. Now, why do I respond? Why I want to share this whilst you were talking. When I was a little boy, my sister got ill of tonsillitis, and she went for an operation, and she looked horrible. I mean, she was bloated like this, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can never bear this. So my grandfather said, but you don't need to. You can do something else. So he walked with me in the field, and he went to a yellow thorn tree. And just below the surface, below the soil, there's a ring of red-colored bark on this tree. So he took a little chisel, and he took some of the bark, made a concoction of it in water. I gargled with it. Well, I'm 55 years old. I never had any troubles in this regard. But why the trees on the way to the opposite tree? There's someone else that knows that. Because when I pass those trees, and it intrigues me, because when I see someone is taking the bark, just as it comes at the surface. So someone else also knows that. But between that someone else and myself, I don't think anybody has.
Now we know.
My brother Emeka, I think you've also been one of the beneficiaries of those plants when you went up, before you went to school.
Yes.
And now sitting here, you can actually see the discrepancy between the traditional knowledge, or the crude knowledge, or the primitive knowledge, and the modern pattern of life from the scientists. So if we have to bridge that gap, we look at it from the business perspective. And then we start saying that, let us go back and start training those people. Because if we do that, we'll balance what he has just said about knowledge, the right of passage. Because if we allow the old men you're talking about, let's say he's no longer living now.
Actually, he died last year.
He died, okay, fine. Then somebody came with science and took everything away. Who is going to be there? Emeka is not there. He benefited from that. The next person came and say your son will not be able to benefit from that. He will go to the pharmacist to get that. So what I'm trying to say here is that the difference between science and the traditional leaders or traditional medicine is education. If we bring in education, the traditional leaders or healers will also understand the importance of conservation. Now, I think one of the issues which the government is afraid of is if we have to allow traditional healers to go there, they will destroy the whole environment. And that is where we come in to say, no, environmentally this is not acceptable. So we should look for a model that can actually say, let's go back and start teaching those people. Because if we do that, it's going to address 3 issues. 1, the issue of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, which is socio-economic development. So, doctor, that is your case.
Sorry, can I add to that? But we must be very careful that we don't mass produce these plants. Because
Yes.
as soon as you start mass producing, they're going to bring in certain fertilizers,
Yeah.
and
True.
the effect of that plant is no longer going to,
It's not going to be the same.
You're going to have GMO.
It's a very complex. I mean, the sustainability aspect is very important. Yeah.
So that occurred to me, and I wanted to just escape me. That's the question I wanted to ask you. The genetic engineering of the products of plants, and eventually plants will work with some of them that they can eat, and I eat the leaves, or we eat the tubers, or we eat the fruits and all that stuff. Is genetic engineering, genetic as part of genetic engineering modified? Is it? There was a very intense argument about whether it is good for the body or whether it's not good for the body on Semlo to some last week. I don't know whether anybody had previewed of this, not somebody else. I don't know from your perspective, what is it actually good for the body? Is it good for the plant, or is it something that we should throw away from?
Very controversial,
Yes.
extremely controversial area, because there are strong arguments for both, sides. And I do think that we, certainly there needs to be a look into the harmful aspects of GMO, and for that to be shared with people so that they know about it. And there are also the benefits. But it's very difficult to control that environment. My position, if you were to ask me personally, on the aspect of GMO, is that more work needs to be done in understanding the impact of GMOs, and that that knowledge. What we're getting is that you either get for or against, but no one is saying, okay, let's just look at both and let's just level the playing field in terms of, is this good? And I mean, it has to be an independent body, that will look into where is it harmful, when is it of benefit. Because the benefits in terms of addressing food shortages, addressing nutrition, and so on, there is a place for that. Yet the harmful aspects as well need to be identified, and it needs to be clear and remove the emotion out of the topic.
Sorry, and just one more thing.
Last comment?
When I went to Zanzibar, we went to the spice farm. What they do there, they take you through, and the guy says, this route does this, gets a piece of it, and shows you. Then I actually asked, I said, but how do you learn? He says, we have got a university in Zanzibar where we actually go to study all about the spices that we have on the island. So we can tell you anything about all the spices, what they can do. I mean, for one plant, you can get 10 different products. It's the same as hemp. I mean, hemp you can get biofuel, you can get medicinal products, and you can also get cloth. And I mean, it's been bad because the Americans had to promote cotton, and they banned hemp. So that's it. All we do now is we start we actually grow. We do well.
Joe, a last comment.
I think I perceive this future where using technology, perhaps maybe what we have available right now, say for instance Google Glass, where I see a tree or a plant and I can run a little search and it can tell me the medicinal benefits of that plant. So, or I can take a photo with my phone and run a search. So that's now trying to transfer that knowledge to the man on the street. And that's trying to also share this knowledge to make it accessible. And then it's not confined to the university that you must go learn about it first, but you actually can interrogate and access it using an innovative way to access it.
You don't think that will be an interesting PhD research?
It is.
Joe, just teasing. Just teasing. Dr. Gumbi, thank you very much. Thanks
you.
for sharing with us, and I hope there will be some more discussion. Well, the idea is that you should actually solve this problem. So, as our speaker, you could send us a WhatsApp
Okay.
in telling us how long did it take you to solve this problem.
You know what? I'm not even going to open the box to see what the problem is. Not in front of everybody. Yes, I can't solve it.
This is one of the original Da Vinci designs.
Okay.
Leonardo da Vinci, and we hope that you'll enjoy solving.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being
Pleasure.
here.
Thank you for the contributions from everybody.
Joe, I want to put Joe on the spot and just quickly tell you what he's going to do now. Joe.
Thanks, Prof. So as part of today's challenge, I think I can, start with a disclaimer. Prof, Dr. Colin Stein, put me up to this, and I said, okay, I'll take the challenge. So what you see on the screens right now is actually a short digital exhibition, and being an IT person, I have a passion for photography, and I wanted actually to pause these as they play and actually talk to them bit by bit, and I think that will make it nice and interactive. So I titled this whole exhibition Visions, right? And what you see and what I see differs, and what you pick from the vision, may be different to what I see and what interested me in the subject. So by no means am I a professional photographer. I just love being behind the lens and capturing a moment. I see pictures, or I see a photograph as a slice in time, at a point in time. And you're basically then capturing that moment, that mood, and that place. However, some of the few elements that I've taken, represents our past and looking at our future. And I challenged myself to say, in the world we live in, with all this innovation around us, there's still certain things that haven't changed. There's still certain things that are actually relevant. If I look at this cannon, for instance, as old as it still fires, but it can still cause damage, if given all this new age technology that we have. And stop me at any time. I mean, if you want to comment or pick up something that you see, that you believe, is worth talking about.
Heart train.
This is the heart rate, exactly. So for instance, the interesting thing for me here was that as much as we've moved forward in terms of technology, rail has been around for years, and rail is still that fundamental engine to drive the economy, to drive a lot of development. So I just found it interesting that here's an interesting project that has actually bridged the two. One of my favorites, I'm a father of two, and I take my kids out to a park. This is a turnstile at a park, near my house. And I just love the aspect of saying, how many hands have actually touched this turnstile over time, over years? And you can see it's worn out, and you can see, over the time that it's been repainted, and it still has, provided that entertainment. At an age where we think technology, is key, kids are no longer playing in the parks, they actually, using PlayStations and everything.
Link that technology to extracting water from underground, and children play, yet at the same time pumping water.
Yeah, exactly.
And the stories that can tell us.
This is a slide, and in fact, what attracted me to the slide is that if you were to think of how many bums have gone down that slide, At an age where we say, you know, technology has taken over kids from playing, look at how shiny it is. You know, you ask yourself, how many have actually had to go through it for it to be this shiny? Any takers as to what that is? So as you go up the stairs on a slide, this is the handrail right at the top. What I like about this, it gives you that beyond limitations type thinking. Beyond where you are right now. Look ahead, look forward.
It looks like your niece building.
Correct. I think that building has been, you know, one of the key landmarks within Pretoria, or maybe in South Africa. It's been there for years, and has actually, you know, produced lots and lots of thinkers. And I just find it as almost like paying homage to an institution of learning and saying, have we actually started to think around what we see and what it relates to, you know, from a man on the street? You know, do they just see this building and walk past? Or do they actually get in touch with it and say, that represents something that, you know, has impact in the society? Bridges, footpaths, you know, crossover. And I think it represents a number of things where this is where you are, this is where you believe you could be, yet there are some limitations that you actually build for yourself. But by just taking that first step, you actually can get through. A number of these bridges, I think we've seen, say, take the Mandela Bridge, Nelson Mandela Bridge, you take some of the suspension bridges that we've seen lately. They almost, all of them look similar to the Viaduc de Millau in France.
Yeah.
And just the sheer thought of that, you know, in today's day and age, we still build suspension bridges. We still build them the old way that they used to be built. We just use, you know, stronger material, more modern methodologies. However, it's still how it was done back then. I think just getting back to basics, you know, the inner child. Half the time, you know, we dress up in suits and this is who we are. However, is that what life is? And I think by just zooming into who you are, what you represent, and finding the core, you can find a way to balance it out as well. Any takers?
Postbox.
Correct. So this is just a mouthpiece of one old postbox, city center of Pretoria. And what I liked about this is today's day and age, and you can see how many times this has been repainted and repainted over and over again. Ask yourself how many letters have gone through this mouthpiece. Today's day and age, and you can see how that paint has actually been etched off as those parcels come. By the way, this was used for the post office strategic document for this year. Not just a pretty picture. I'm sure most of you have seen this type of photography where you just capture the light as it passes through. This is a car driving past. However, I'm one proponent of a theory that says, just like you have all different cars in the garage or in the parking lot, they will all get there, however, different pace, different speeds. This was an old rickety car, and I was still able to produce the same effect. It wasn't a fast car, you know, it was moving at the slowest pace, however, still being able to produce the same effect. So in my view, say, as much as you can, you know, improve in terms of the innovation of how fast this, you know, cars can be, however, the primary purpose to get from point A to point B. picked the whole scenery because I think it's lovely. This is Venice. And I'm just thinking, as much as they have, moved on in terms of how to get from point A to point B, however, gondolas are still the main mode of transport when you're in Venice. You park your car far away, and that's all you can do is walk around and catch a gondola. And yes, there's modern boats, however, you still want, to be in touch with that particular mode.
That's a very interesting picture. That one. There's a lot in that. That's part of a Chinese building or a pagoda or something.
Yes.
And the number of figures, and I've always tried to remember and think what they were, but the number of figures delineates your status. And they're in a funny order. So you might have the chicken right in front, whereas you think that the lion should be right, that sort of thing. And I find the whole symbolism in the Chinese way of living and doing and all of those things very fascinating and very grounding. Yeah, so I saw that picture just now and I thought, I like that picture. And the yellow, the colours as well. The yellow and the reds.
The red as well. That's when I give you a gift, that one with a red envelope.
So to cement what you've just shared, I'm Diyarmakar. Chandelier, old chandelier, been around for years. It is inside the Theo van Beek building, one of the main buildings in Unisa. And I loved it because it looks actually like something else, whereas it's actually a chandelier. And one looking through it, my perspective is, you're getting different elements, coming out of it. At the same time, it comforts me, just looking at it. Interesting picture. So this was 4th of January 2010 when the tallest building in the world was being opened. That's Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And at first glance, I didn't even notice how pervasive the technology is. And everybody is trying to capture the fountain show. And just look at the bottom. All those hands trying to capture that. And one gets a sense of we have become such a beings that want to have a piece of something, capture that piece of it myself. I don't want to go to a website and download it. I want to buy it.
But Joe, isn't it so, I don't know if it's ironic or not, but the way we are now able to capture things is so much quicker than when we had the old cameras that you had to do, and then you only had 36 exposures, and once that was done you had to pull it out, and now you can capture as much as you want, provided you've got a big enough memory card, or that you can actually take all these pictures. I mean, you can take them in sequence. You don't have to get them developed. You don't even have to print them because you've got them electronic.
True. When I looked at this picture, I asked myself, this is now developed into some kind of a ridge or some kind of a hill, but as we know, sand moves. And how long has it taken for it to be into this shape, into this hill? And it being in a desert, this could happen over a long period of time. And do we have the patience to actually monitor it, to actually sit and watch it shape? Or are we in this fast pace of instant, I want it now? This is a sculpture, once again, in Pretoria. And to me, it symbolizes almost like a connectedness of things, where there's different skills and different elements that make a whole. And I think we need to also tap into that ourselves in understanding how together, we form something, together we develop something. This is a typical train station in Dubai. This is, I think, is near the Dubai Financial Investment area. But I just like the aspect of grand with form, where it's seen as a work of art, at the same time it's actually functional. So you're not only just looking at a beautiful piece of building, but you actually have a functional train station that works in that way. Can you take us? Lost that point.
That looks like Hitler's salute,
It does. On the other
No, the
hand.
head is too small.
that guy is not tall, actually.
What I liked about this image is the symbolism of open hands, open arms. And I think knowing the history that he's gone through and what he represents, the fact that he was captured in this stance, for me, what really speaks to me is around, are we actually able to open up ourselves to that extent and challenge ourselves to almost, that kind of stature, as much as, we don't have to, but is it really the essence of us being who we are, that we can actually expose ourselves and selflessly, be part of a society? Thank you.
Joe, thanks for sharing those perspectives on reality. I really appreciate it, and I must admit I find the connectivity image a very powerful image, because I think the beauty lies, I believe, in variety. And and even looking at your images that you collect today, I think it exposes you in a way and making yourself more vulnerable and saying, this is who I am. But even more so, I really appreciate that. And thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so if you want to talk to Joe, if you're welcome. If you want to have something outside, just be around. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.